Okay, so now in this the last project, continuing with the same concept as we did in the last two lectures, we like to now learn how we can scrap one specific table, the table of our choice. So, as you know that I have been repeatedly saying this that there are two tables in this the page, though there are many tables, but the visible tables, I guess there are only two. So what if you want to scrap first table or maybe the second table? Like one is this table and the second is this table, right? Now, please note that I'm not saying these are two different tables because they have different expand and collapse button. Of course not. I have seen in the inspect the element that basically it's using the different the table tag and it is using the different table tag. So that makes me sure that these are the different tables. Now, these may look like table 1, table 2, but you never know that in the HTML, how many tables they have set up because they might have hidden some tables. Yeah, you simply do not know about that, right? So the first thing is that you need to run a loop and you have to see that what is the index of this asset table and what is the index of this liability table, and then you can, using that index, you can refer to that specific table. Okay, so first thing first, I insert this. I go in the module 1 and I simply go and give it a name that specific table specific export. Okay, so you have this module now. We have already covered table export, everything table export excluding the height and the blank values, right? This is something, this is not required, I'll delete it. So you have three modules now. To begin with, what we do is we take the help of the previous code quickly. So what I do is, until this point, I think we can just go and copy the code quickly, right? So guys, the first thing which I want to do is uh, I want to run the loop which loop through all the tables. Okay, so we write here table specific index. Hope you, by reading the name of the macro, you will understand that what is happening. Okay, right. So once we are done with this, the only thing which I want to do here is that first of all, this is my table, so I give it a name called TBL, and this is, let's say, TBLS, and this is TBLS. Okay, and this will be table. As you know that this is how we refer to our tables. So we quickly go and run the collection loop for each table in tables and then next TBL. Okay, now I will have a number of list of tables here. So we use the column number 1 equals to tbl dot class name. Okay, I'll tell you one thing, why I'm using the class name. There is a reason for that, because every table has a class. Some table, obviously, they are not using the any class, as you saw in the previous lectures also, but specifically talking about the lab, this table and this table, they are using a class. Okay, so I like to go and show you that. Let's go to the inspect element. Okay, so this is where the table starts. As you can see, we have this table which has a class called CR data table. I quickly go and copy this, double click on this, and we see that just for our own understanding, we will remember this class. Okay, because we want to see a table which has this class. Now there may be chances that some other tables are also using this class, right? So you need to basically go and figure it out that if this table is using CR data table class, how many other tables are using which are coming before this table on this page. Okay, so one method is that you can simply go and say control F and go here and say control V, and now you can just go and press enter, and this is going to take you to the all the tables which are using this CR table class. As you see here that there is another table. Okay, which table is it? This is, I guess, the first table. the fiscal year is October September 2019, right? So this is the I think the assets table. Yeah, this is the, so that means this table and this table both are using the same class, right? But that's fine, there's no challenge in that, they can use that. But do I have any other table which is using the same class? So I click on the next. Now let's go and check that. So this is where now it takes me, and I think this is the same table which we want to scrap, all values USD million. Yeah, so this means that there are two tables. There might be other tables as well down the line, but I don't want to go and check that, because when you run the loop will start from the top and start fetching the, all the table classes. So amid this, there might be some other tables, that's fine, but one thing I'm sure that so far, if I go by the class cr underscore data table, the second table which is using this, the class, that's the table which I like to go and scrap. Okay, so we now know the thing. We simply go and run this the loop, and I just hit on, I think before I hit on the f plus 5, I like to go and increment the row number 1 and dim r as long, and r should be 1. Okay, cool. So I think we are ready with that. Let's hit on the F5, and now let us wait. I should be able to see all the table classes over here. Okay, so you can see that we started getting the tables. So the first class is CR data table, which we wanted. There are some other tables also which are using SG container class, which is fine. So I put the index here 0, because the first table will have index called 0. This is a very important point, and we create a serial number for that. So now I just like to go and search this where it is. So we say control F, and this is the first index. So that means this is your table. If you want to refer to the first table which we are seeing on the web page, you can use the 0 index, but we need the second one, and the second one, I guess you see that it's far away from this, the first one. So I click on the find next, and this is where it is taking me. So this is another table, and this is where I wanted it, because this is the second class now between the row number 1 and 59, right? So this is the second data table class, and please make a note that the index is 58. Okay, so once you are done with this, you don't need anything. Now you will start the process again, because this is just to confirm the index of the table, so I don't need this in my code. So I now go and use the code again. And by the way, this is a I should write here that get table specific index. Okay, and here we will write that export values table specific index. Okay, so this the line, we don't need it, guys. For the time being, we go and delete it. We don't need it at all. Okay, now let's focus on this. Now once you're done with this the entire thing, what you need to do is, because now we are not going to work with all the tables, so here at the end of this you will put the index, which is 58, right? So you can change the index if you want to change. So for me, this is the 50th index, right? This is done, and let's go back to the sheet number 2. I don't delete this for you. Okay, this is where I will go and export the data. Okay, so once you have made the table 58, now what is the next thing I like to do? Now you see that we have a table 58. So my plan is that once you are on this table, this is the table number 58, if you remember, right? Which has all values, US to million and all that stuff. This is what you needed, isn't it? This is what we needed. I repeat it. This is what you need, all value US to million and all that, right? This is of course a header, th tag, but we can capture it. So now the thing is, you need to understand what is the plan. The plan is, first of all, we will count how many rows we have under this table. So let's say it says that you have the total number of rows 70. Okay, so we then say that if any row is hidden, if any row has a hide class, because this HTML inspect element, you know that from the previous lectures are using some hidden tags as well, right? uh, I mean, I can quickly even go and check that if they are using it. Let's click on the t body of this the second table. Yeah, so they are using this height class. So we will just go and filter the height tags, and then we will scrap the elements from each of the row. So the plan is, what you do is, first you say first you count how many rows you have. One by one you keep on moving your row like this, like this, like this, and you keep on scrapping the td element inside that, right? And this is something we have done it, but this time one thing which I'm doing it differently is that I'm not running for each loop. I'm saying that please count the total number of rows inside this table, right? And then accordingly go and start the working on it. So we create here for next loop for j equals 2. We start with 0, and now your table tbl is, so you can write here tbl rows, and then we will go and count length. Okay, so this is how it is. Make sure that you should not be confused that when you press dot, rows is not showing in the IntelliSense. That's fine. Now the thing is, if I go and run this, this will give you the number of rows. Okay, let's say this is giving you number of rows 20. Now when you have the 20 rows, it starts with the 1. However, when you go and scrap the td element, and the row element, it uses the index 0. So to balance it out, we must go and subtract -1, so that if I'm getting my row numbers 20, so row number 20, this line gives you, this doesn't count from 0, this counts from the number called 1. Okay, so to make sure that it should be in the sync with the actually the way this HTML works, which is it starts with the 0 index, we are subtracting 1. So if you have 20 rows, it should actually go from 0 to 19. So eventually, because even that 0 is the first row, so 19 is going to be 20, right? So this is how it is. So this is to count the total number of rows. When I say row, I mean tr tag, obviously, right? Inside the table which has a 58 index, right? Cool. So now the next step, which is very important, you will go here and first of all define that, because this is going to run, let's say 20 times. So each time it runs, you have to go and say that I'm targeting my row number 1, then row number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so we go and define here the row, which I define it as, let's say t row as I HTML element. Okay, so this row we will define here that, look, the row is also going to change. So set t row equals to your tables dot rows, and then you will go here and give the index, which is going to be j. So when the j is 0, this refers to the row number 0. When the j is 1, this refers to the row number 1 of table 58. Make sense? Once you are on the row number, let's say on this the 0 row, which is the first row, let's say this is the one, right? Now we like to go and scrap the td tags, isn't it? So as we learned in the previous code, we simply say that for each td in trows dot children. Okay, so this is the plan. So we are going to now scrap the td elements. Obviously I need to declare the td also. So what I do is I go and write here td as again I HTML element. You don't need any collection element for this, because these are individually we are handling. Remember that point. When you handle the objects individually, you don't need the HTML element collection, because this is we use this to refer to the collection loops. But right now I simply I'm not actually running any collection loop. The first, well, I just realized that when we don't have to use any collection loop, why I am actually declaring this TBLS in this way. My apologies, you don't need this. I delete this. You just need the single element. Okay, all right, so that's cool. So your TBL is declared. It's an individual table. You don't want to work with any collection tables, right? Because we know the table index, so we simply use the single IHTML element. Okay, makes sense. So once you are done with this, then as you know that we will go and scrap the row number 1 and then the column number 1, and I guess this is something we have already uh, designed, so I just go and use this, I guess this if function I can. So I will simply go and copy this entire code. You know that why we are doing it, right? Just to make sure that no empty dt tag should go in the Excel, and at the same time 5-year trend, the header, we don't need it, right? So we have seen this in the previous lecture. So I guess this should work, but we can always go and do the testing. Uh, and one more thing, that this is not TBLS, this is TBL. This we rectified before, and this is also TBL. So we can always debug and see that if there is any error. So we have one more error. This is T row, actually T row. So this is fine. I can again debug. Okay, so we have one more error. It's DD. My apologies. It's this time it is TD, and so I should correct this also TD. And row and the columns are fine, I guess. And yeah, so one thing, I think the row is defined or not. The row, we haven't defined the row, which I'm using here. So R as long, and I'm going to start the R with 1. So I hit on the debug, and one more error. Okay, oops, sorry, this is also TD. Let's click on the compile. Now there is one more error, which is the C. Okay, C is not defined. C should be defined. C as long, and you can write in one line also if you want to, by simply writing the colon, right? So it's not a semicolon, remember that. So I start with the column number 1, and let me click on the debug. Okay, so now I think it is not giving any error. So we can go and run the code now. So let's go and hit on the F5. I'm pretty confident this is going to run. So there you go. This is the page. So you can see that we started getting the values. Wow, super cool. And it starts with all values. So this means we are fine here. Okay. So absolutely fantastic. So we have got the details, and I guess the number of rows are a little higher. Uh, that's obviously because there are some classes which you have to go and exclude. So you can write here, when you define the row, you know that the row number 1, 2, 3, 4. Before you go further, as you know that, you can write that if the T row class name is not equals to hide, then only you should go and proceed further. Otherwise, you don't have to do anything. Otherwise, I think you simply have to go for the next row. So you can put here the else, right? Else and if. Okay, this is to handle hide class name, right? Which is coming from a tr tag, obviously, which means row. The one thing which I want to make sure hide, we should have a case sensitivity also. It is going to create a problem in the if functions. So hide is in small letters, and I guess we are fine. Yes, so I like to re-pull this, and this time, so how many rows we are getting here right now? 57. So definitely we should see here less number of rows. So I hit on the code again, and now let's wait for the page. So we have the page here. Let me go and minimize this. Okay, so there we go. We started getting the values. Okay, and I think the code has stopped. So you see that there are only 34 rows. So this is working beautifully, right? And of course, now if you want to check, you can just go and change this to 0. You can change this to 0 and rerun the program, and you will have the first table. But I'm not going to do that because I have already tested it. Okay, so I hope this will take you to a new level when it comes to web scraping. Thank you to my dear student who put up all these questions one by one, and I hope I was able to explain you properly. Happy coding, guys. Bye.